Hey, welcome back. We're in studio today and have some great guests. We'll get to that in just a second. Obviously, the Colts taking on the Ravens. Got practices today, practice tomorrow, and then they get it on coming up on Monday as a part of preseason game number 2 on Monday Night Football against the Ravens. But in studio right now, I'm so happy because one of my favorite guys of all time is in here. And in fact, he was telling me just before we went on here, it's the first time he's been in this building, which is shocking with all the time he's been here. Tony and Lauren Dungy in studio with us right now. It is so – no, you guys – Lauren can come on too, okay, because I'm going to ask you questions as well. No, we can't. Hi. That's okay. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
And Tony, you look fantastic, as does your wife.
Well, thank you. Doing great. We're up here just back and having fun, doing some book promotion, but it's great to be back in Indianapolis.
And you're going to be doing some today. You're going to be doing some tomorrow as well. And you got to work that around your heavy football schedule, too.
Yeah, well, we're not on yet. We start with NBC just in the regular season. So September 6th, we'll have the opening night, and excited for that. But we've got kids getting squared away in school and flag football and cross country and a lot of things our kids are involved in.
Well, I definitely want to talk about the book coming up in a second, too, because both your names are on it. And I mentioned this. My wife is the assistant principal at Jeremiah Gray on the South Side, and she has, I think, something else you had done before that her kids read, which I think is pretty awesome. But before we get to that, talk a little bit about the football. And I don't know if you know this or not, but back when there were some questions as to who was going to be the coach here, I, without your permission, dropped your name back in there again.
Did you?
I did, yeah. I dropped your name back in there again.
I don't know if Lauren would be too happy about that.
I'm sorry, Lauren. I dropped your name back in there again, and I said, you know what? You have a guy leave in the 11th hour like that and causes a lot of chaos. And I thought, man, there's the calm before the storm right there.
But, Frank Reich is going to be that. And I think they got the perfect person. And I remember talking to Chris Ballard and saying, hey, this could just be a blessing in disguise. You'll end up with a good person. They got Frank, and he's going to be tremendous.
Did Jim pretty immediately reach out to you and say, hey, what's going on here? What should I do?
He called me and asked for some thoughts, and we talked a little bit. And, I think Frank was the perfect person coming off a Super Bowl. He's been here, knows the lay of the land, knows everything that, about the team and the organization, and he's going to be great.
I would agree, too. I do. I think that it is going to be a blessing in disguise. And, I think right now they don't have a great deal of talent. I don't know if you've seen them in that first preseason game. But the fact that Andrew Luck is back, it supersedes everything else.
It really
within
does.
The organization.
And they're going to be fine. And I know they're changing defensive style, so that's going to be a work in progress. But I like the direction they're going, back to the kind of small, quick, fast strikers that we had. And the offense with Andrew, it's going to be just a night and day difference when he's there. He's that talented of a quarterback. Tony
Dungy in studio with us. Lauren Dungy's in studio as well. They got a book called Austin Plays Fair, and they're going to do some book signings, which we'll talk about coming up as well. But going back to Frank Reich for a moment, did you think that he was ready to become a head coach before his name was actually in the mix? Because his name wasn't in the mix because of their deep run to a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, and he was kind of a victim of the rule that once you get going in the playoffs, nobody can talk to you until you finish. But Frank is a tremendous coach. He started out here with me on our staff my last year, and then stayed with Jim Caldwell. And he's, I think, a lot like Doug Peterson, the coach of Philadelphia. Very steady, very much in tune with the players, great communicator, very sharp, but not a guy who's going to blow his own horn. And I remember when Doug took over in Philadelphia and people saying, who is this guy? And is he ready? And he hasn't been a head coach before. And obviously he showed what he could do. And I think Frank will be the same way.
It's funny, too. It's almost like throughout the NFL, it's like when you're coming out of high school, when you were able to come out of high school in basketball and go straight to the NBA, when you're used to be able to do that, general managers were afraid to get that miss on that next great thing. And now you see a lot of football guys afraid to miss on that next great young type of coordinator or quarterback's coach.
If you go somewhere else and prove yourself, and then we'll get you. But if you talk to those guys and say, why don't you go after this person? He's up and coming. He's on the rise. He's going to be good. The players love to play for him. they don't want to take a chance on something that they feel is a little bit unsure. But I think we miss the mark sometimes that way.
I agree with you on that too. I'm going to get back to a final thing on that whole coaching thing back in February. To me, was I loved it as an end result because I thought Jim was able to reach out to you and reach out to Peyton and even reach out to Bill and get advice that I think makes everybody feel better through a chaotic situation, because that's not good. I mean, that's not good for Chris, and I know it was embarrassing for Chris, but the fact they were able to lean on you and others that have had so much success here, I thought was pretty special.
It was great, and it is going to turn out well. And I told Chris Ballard at the time, I said, I got the Tampa Bay job only after Steve Spurrier turned it down and Jimmy Johnson turned it down. And looking back on it, I was the best person for it. It was a long-range building plan. That's what they needed. And I think the Lord just worked it out that way. So 10 years later, nobody remembers that those guys turned it down. And it'll be the same way here.
Hey, Tony, when you look back on your time here in Indy, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
One thing Lauren will remember, coming home in Tampa after I'd gotten fired, and there's this long voicemail message from Jim Irsay. And
I bet it was long.
It was long. But he said, hey, I want you to be our coach. We don't have a 70-year history like the Bears. We haven't been here 100 years. That's what we want to build, though. We've got to connect with our fan base. That's why I want you to be here. We want to make Indianapolis a football town. We want the fans to get a connection with our team. We want to win with the right type of players. I mean, he went on and on and on, and we're both listening to it and saying, that's the place we want to be.
Well, and that really helped turn the tide. I mean, then you had you and you had Bill and you had Peyton here, and it's so long. And before you got here, I always talk about this, and people always say, "Well, this fan base is so spoiled. They're not used to the last 3 years, Tony, of 8-8, 8-8, and 4 wins." But I was here in '84 when it first got here. I was in junior high. But they had such a long line of nothing but losing, and jokes made about it. And you guys legitimized it to a point where now these are the expectations, and I think that's great. I really do.
Yeah, we can remember our first home game here in 2002. We're playing the Dolphins, and I came out of the tunnel, and there's 3/4 of the stadium is in Dolphins jerseys.
Yep.
And it's like, what is going on? Well, a couple of years later, then it was blue and white, and everybody's got the 18 jerseys and the 88 jerseys, and it's been special to see that transformation.
How's your relationship with Jim to this day?
Great, fantastic. He has just been a special friend. I enjoy him, and it was just the right time for us. He did some wonderful things for our family. And he's just, I love him to death, and just, I don't know what more I could say about a boss. He was just the best.
And then the other thing I think about all the time with you is you were a great coach. I always thought that maybe one of these days, well, not now, but one of these days after you left coaching, that maybe you'd try to do some GMing, some organizational stuff.
That wasn't me. People ask that quite a bit. Yeah. Different. If you don't want to coach again, could you just come in and be a consultant, or could you come in and be the director of football operations? But I thought my strength and my skill was communicating with the players, getting the most out of my players, and being a coach. So I never considered any other capacity, really.
How many consulting gigs have you been offered? Maybe not publicly, but many?
More than you can count, yeah.
I kind of think of Peyton Manning in the same way, too.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about this, but not as a coach, but I see him more of a figurehead organizationally making some decisions.
Well, yeah, he would not be a figurehead. He would be
that's what I mean. Yeah,
the top of the podium,
right,
and saying, hey, here's the direction we want to go. And that's so much about football nowadays, is having that direction from the top and getting everybody on board and going the same way. And if you do that, you've got a chance to be successful. That's why I like where the Colts are now. I think with Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay, you're going to see that same thing of going in the same direction.
They won 4 games last year. What do you think a successful season is for them this year?
Well, I think playoffs would be a successful season. I think that's feasible. If Andrew's healthy, I think you could easily go from 10 or 11 wins. I was at the Buccaneers practice facility on Monday talking to their players, and I said, just think back to this time last year. Who was talking about the Philadelphia Eagles? who do you remember anybody in August saying Philadelphia is definitely going to be the best team in football? No one. And that's how close it is in terms of talent level. So you just have to get that chemistry, that energy, get that synergy going, and you can make a run.
So where's Jameis Winston as far as his career is concerned? This seems like a pretty pivotal moment.
Jameis is at a crossroads, and he's a great young man on the field. He's talented. He's a leader. He's a great young man in the locker room. And when he's in that building, he's all football. The players love him. His teammates love him. Now he's got to be a great young man all the time, and he's got to make good decisions off the field as well. And, he's got to mature, and that's got to come fast.
Tony Dungy's in studio with us. Lauren Dungy's in studio with us. We'll get back to a couple of football things before we close out. Talk a little bit about Austin Plays Fair. I'm showing this because we actually have cameras in studio right now. If I think they're more on you than more on me. Are we doing that right there? Okay. Talk a little bit about the book.
We actually started several years ago, and Lauren and a lot of the wives used to read when I was coaching, and they loved it but wanted more material, more books that they could read that had life lessons, that had diverse characters. So that's kind of what got us started. And we've got a new series with these two that you mentioned. The first one is called Austin Plays Fair. Yeah. Austin is a young boy on a flag football team. The team's not doing very well. One of the players suggests a way they can do better, but it's just against the rules. And so Austin has to decide, am I going to be a friend and a teammate and go along with something even if I don't believe it's right, or do I do the right thing? And he has to make that decision. So, again, life lessons, and, we're hoping that parents and adults can discuss these things with their kids.
Do you observe exactly what goes on with youth sports and athletics? And I don't think I've ever asked you this, but because there's such a high priority, at third grade to be the best and to year-round concentrate on this and concentrate on that. Is that overall for the good of the child?
No, it's not, and that's actually, we're developing a series of these books, and that's where a lot of the stories come from our kids and kids that we observe and things that they go through and the messages that they're getting. And these books want to kind of examine that and say, hey, that might not be the best way to go.
Just you look at it, and it's just getting younger and younger. And then the whole philosophy of winning, anymore, if you're not the last one standing and winning at all, you're viewed as being disappointing. And that trickle down is going down to the kids' level, too.
Yeah, we have probably 4 or 5 kids in sports now, and they, even in the leagues where they don't keep score, our kids still come back with, hey, I know there's no scoreboard, but we won today. Mm-hmm. And it's something that's emphasized, and they've got to understand that, yes, that's important. You want to do your best. Eventually you're going to be in a situation where you want to win, but that's not the only thing that you get out of playing sports.
We're looking at Austin Plays Fair, and Maria Finds Courage. Talk a little bit about this one.
Maria is new to the game of soccer. She is not familiar with the game and is really apprehensive about going out there and joining her teammates on the field. She is going to be asked to be stretched out of her comfort zone by joining the group, and her coaches encourage her. They walk alongside her. So she puts her feet out on the field, and she starts playing and finds out that it's a lot of fun, and her teammates are there to encourage her and walk alongside her. So a lot of kids experience that same thing. They're asked to do something new, and it's frightening to try something that you're not familiar with.
Well, I'm lucky, too. I wasn't, growing up, much of a reader. My kids are incredible readers.
And that's another thing we really wanted to do. But boys, in general, don't read as much. So if we could make some sports-related stories that a young boy might say, hey, and then say reading is important. Yeah.
So teamdungy.com, you can sign up to be the
character in the next book.
Oh, that is so great. Barnes & Noble in Carmel later on tonight, and then tomorrow in Castleton.
Lifeway in Castleton.
So, which is awesome. How long are you going to be here tomorrow, then you're out of town?
Yep, then we're back to Tampa and get our kids back in school next week.
See, I told you before we got on the air here at 5 that My daughter's been back at school since the 25th.
That's unbelievable.
Lauren, I'm telling you, if they would have told me back in the day, let's say this is 1985, and they say, hey, you know what, you need to get back to junior high here on the 20th of August, I would have said, no, I don't think I'm going.
No way. Yeah.
Summertime. What's happened? What has happened to summertime? Hey, what's NFL Football Night in America going to look like this year?
We're excited. A little different look in the studio. Dan Patrick, who had been the host for 10 years, is concentrating on radio now. So Mike Tirico is going to be with us.
Who's a great guy.
Mike is fantastic. We're so excited about that. We open up September 6th at Philadelphia. We always get the defending champions. So Philadelphia and Atlanta to start our year, and then we're going to be busy from there.
You got any picks as far as who you think is going to end up in the Super Bowl?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's so early. I want to see who gels and who comes on, and their team looks like they're playing together in this first part of the year.
Tony, where are we in football? You get a lot of naysayers that say we're going down kind of a slippery slope here in a variety of ways, either political or just as far as health is concerned. Where are we with the game?
I think we're making progress with the health issues, definitely working at safety more than it ever has been before. And I know fans get upset, they get turned off about some things, but I remember 82, which I don't know how many years ago that was, but a lot of my neighbors saying, oh, this strike, the players are greedy, the owners are greedy, I'm never watching football again. And obviously that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
And so we've got people upset about a lot of things, but football will bounce back, and they'll get the buzz again, and I think we're going to be fine.
Did you ever think over the course of your playing career and coaching career that politics was going to enter at such an angle as it is
not
right
as
now?
pervasively as it has, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people are taking shots at the NFL, and we've done some things not good, and we've opened ourselves up to some criticism. But I think we've got the right kind of people moving in the right direction. I do think we're addressing the safety issues. It's not going to be perfect, but I like where we're headed.
How would you have handled the National Anthem thing if you were the coach here?
I talked to a lot of people about this, and I've suggested this to a bunch of coaches that are still coaching. I would have a meeting the first day of training camp and say, look, if you have issues that are going on in your community that you're concerned about, I applaud that, because I always want our players to be involved in the community. Let's talk about it. Come in. What are your issues? What are the problems? What are some of the solutions you have? What are some of the things you're doing to make things better? Let's put all that down, and then I'm going to give you 15 minutes of my press conference, opening press conference, when we've got all the media there, so you can address that and your voice can be heard in the right way. Now, things happen, come up during the year, come back to me, and I'll give you 15 minutes of every Monday press conference if you need it. That way, your voice can be heard in a reasonable way. You won't have to say, well, the only time I can ever be heard is during the National Anthem. No, I'm going to give you the platform. And I think that's what the NFL should be doing, working with the players to make the communities better.
Yeah, it just seems like they're all over the map with it. And
nobody really is taking the time to listen to the concern.
Right.
All they're doing is I either agree with the anthem protest or I disagree. I've been on the side of it. My dad was a veteran. My dad wouldn't be offended by it. My dad would say that's why I enlisted in World War II, to keep the freedom of expression. But I understand the other side, people who are hurt by it. So let's take it away from there and put it in a place where everybody can hear what the issues are.
And we're such a short attention span, soundbite society, and just kind of the gotcha thing, and that doesn't serve a purpose in this. I mean, it really doesn't. You guys are awesome. It is great to have you back here. I wish you came back more often, too.
Yeah.
I apologize about dropping your name in back in February about the head coach thing, but what are you going to do?
Now they've got a good head coach, so we don't have to worry about that.
They do. Frank Reich is very good. I
wonderful.
think people are going to be happy. Lauren, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Tony, great to see you. The books, Austin Plays Fair and Maria Finds Courage, at any bookstore right now. They're going to be at Barnes & Noble in Carmel.
7 to 9 tonight.
7 to 9 tonight. Come and see them. And then in Castleton coming up tomorrow. And I'll tell you what, just some fantastic people. Great to have you back.
Thanks a lot.
It's Tony and Lauren Dungy in studio. Quick break. That was awesome. Back with you next.